911, what is your emergency? I hear shots! Okay, ma'am, calm down. What kind of shots?
I'm all about bringing out personal stories in people, and this is more of an intrigue for me, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to hear this story too. You've kind of thrown a little bit of nuggets on social media that I saw about making it big off an $800 ad spend, and I like to almost paint you as the king of getting maximized in the amount of ad spend you have. So you're like a ROAS champion, and what's that story? Like, how did that even happen? What even led you to getting into that, and what were the results? Like, how did that actually happen? Because that's crazy.
Wow. When I started, my ex-business partner, Bryn, he might watch this. So what up, Bryn? Probably will watch this. So he had basically figured out how to make meme pages, how to grow Instagram pages. And I was like, oh, cool. And I'd already I'd had businesses forever. I told you earlier about how I quit my job at 18, but even at that time and prior to, I was running businesses. But so I saw what he was doing and I thought, okay, great. I think I could get involved. I started doing the normal agency shit, phoning around locally, trying to figure it out. And then my now business partner, who I've known since I was 13, Lewis, came to me and he was like, he had started learning the agency stuff like a year earlier. So he had already been deep. He did Iman's course. He did a bunch of stuff like that. And he came to me, he's like, I think we could run ads for this. So we filmed an ad of him. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I had no money. And I went and I put $800 into ads, and it went for 7 days. And I was like, okay, if this goes, I can continue to do this. But otherwise, like at this point, I'd had a lot of failed businesses. So I was like, not a lot, but I'd had some successful ones and I had some ones that didn't work out. And so I was like, I'll see how it goes. And so I ran $800 for a week. And by like the fourth day, so we must have only been $400 and something in, I sold a package for $1,000, and I was like, it was $1,200 I made that week, and I was like, movie. So then I was ready to go, and I just kept it going. And then we switched into finance because I had friends that were in that industry. They're friends of my head of sales right now, but at the time he's my only salesman, Aiden, and mutual friends, what are now mutual friends of him and I, they were already in the finance game, but they were just doing like Google and SEO. And I had started, I was doing finance, I was doing influencer marketing and ads at the time. And I was like, great, this could apply. And then the Wall Street bet shit happened. And I was like, perfect. Now people are like way more likely to believe in this, right? And we did a really big campaign. And it was way more money than I'd ever seen in my life. I remember when that wire hit and I was like, that was the first time I'd seen like more than six figures in an account. And I was like, okay, perfect. Like, obviously this is what I should be doing. And then over that period of time, that first offer I had was get 10,000 followers like this. And we're talking like 3.5, 4 years ago now. Get 10,000 followers in 30 days, basically. And so we would use like giveaway growth in order to like supply the Instagram growth. But it was a really good offer, and I figured out what the structure was for the ads. Lewis had taught me that. And so I then just kept continuing to figure out ways where these skills that I'd learned, because when that agency, when Savvy first started, for the first year and a half, I just upskilled the shit out of myself. Like my girlfriend would be watching movies and I would be just sitting there taking Google Ads courses. I did the Google Ads course. I did the Facebook Ads course. I watched a hell of a lot of YouTube videos. I learned SEO. I did all this shit, right? And so I now have these skills. And I was like, okay, great. Now what? Right? And I kept upskilling. I learned how to get celebrities. I learned how to get influencers on a consistent basis. I learned how to make systems while the business was scaling. I learned how to build a business, how to manage people. And I'd already had employees in the past, but this was the first time that I was having like a team. And yeah, so having all those skills, I just kept finding things that it applied to. Have the finance stuff, that went well. Then we did crypto for a while. Then we came back to finance and launched the offer. And yeah, it's been good.
Killing it. So that's the thing that was the accelerator.
Was that first 800 ad spend? Yeah.
And was it an all-in play? Like, was that the last $800
I didn't.
you had?
I had no money. I had to borrow $800 from my parents, and they said, if you don't get any money in a week, like, this is fucking done.
Wow.
Like, go figure it out.
What hit you where you had the confidence to say, you know what, I have that belief to throw it down and believe that it would work?
I always believed in myself, but I had nothing to like lose, you know? Like, worst comes to worst, I'd go get a job. I'd go figure it out. I was still making money off of flipping clothing. I could continue to do that, right? But it wasn't a ton of money. Like, I was making maybe 30 grand a year off of that, you know? So I had other options. I had a life that I was living that I, could have kept doing. And I did. Like, when Savvy Social was in its infancy, there was a period of time where the ads got taken down, and I was like new to Facebook and didn't know how to get an agency ad account and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, fuck, like, I just sat on my hands basically for not sat on my hands. I just didn't know what to do. I was like filling out paperwork, and then they come back to me. But like for 2 months, I had to go back to flipping clothes in order to continue to live. So yeah, I didn't feel that I had much to lose, and I trusted Lewis, and I trusted my own business, Savvy. And the offer was good, but I didn't really know anything about offers or like any of that kind of stuff at the time, really. But I knew that I wanted to do this digital marketing thing and give it a good go. And I thought that we had a cool service that we could sell. I thought that there was definitely product market fit. Who doesn't want Instagram followers?
100%.
Right. So I just thought it was a good idea, I guess.
You saw an opportunity there and you took a risk and it worked out.
Yeah,
Damn.
basically.
Awesome. And you keep mentioning Lewis. For the listeners that don't know, Lewis is your best friend?
Yeah.
Yeah. I see these guys, they've been killing in the gym, hitting the gym like 7 days a week. I think that having that partner that you can trust by your side is so important, at least for myself in my own life, having that rock as a person that you can always rely on. But I also think it's really important that that person has skills that are entirely different from you. And I don't know you guys so deeply, but at first glance, you guys are kind of yin to yang. Yeah. And how has Lewis came in and been like, has he been that kind of rock for you? Has he been that person that has made the difference? Do you think you could have done what you did without Lewis?
No, without a question, no. And he definitely is. You need solid people around you. You need people, like I was saying earlier, you need people that are loyal and that you can trust and that work hard. And Lewis, I can honestly say, works really fucking hard. And I watch him do that. And for me, that's huge because I work really, really hard, long hours. I sit in front of the computer all day. Like, just even if I'm not doing anything on the computer, I will continue to sit there because I know that eventually there'll be something that needs to get done, whether it be 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And that's just the way that I work. And so it's really disparaging if everybody around you isn't also working as hard. And he puts the hours in. He's smart, he's so smart. Though when you're saying yin to yang, I never read any of these books before. Like, that was the thing. Like, all of my entrepreneurial experience has come from the fact that, like, from the time I was 8, I've been running little business. Like, I started shoveling driveways at 8 in the winter. I made $350 in like 3 days, and I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy!" Because you're 8 years old.
Yeah. $350 when we're 8 is like a movie. It's 100,000.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, it's always been kind of just built over time. But for Lewis, it's very much learned and studied, and his way of approaching everything is much more analytical and based on empirical evidence from other people, and and it's taught me to do that. I've read a lot of books. I've read a lot more books since we've been like working together more closely. And yeah, I'd say that like that stuff is probably the biggest key asset. And he's more organized than I am. And he's he's learned how to build out the spreadsheets for agencies and run a back end for an agency and run a CRM. Like, dude, I've never touched Go High Level. Like from the first time I had Go High Level 3 years ago, Lewis was the one that had set it up. So like to this day, he is helping, he runs the Go High Level, but now we have employees that do, he just oversees it. But like all of that structural stuff is so crucial, and I just don't have that knowledge. And then the finance side, he's worked in like ultra high net worth wealth management, like actually helping people like buy diamonds or buy gold or like stuff like that, where you do huge deals that like I've never done that before. That's fucking completely out of my wheelhouse. So like that is a huge asset. He speaks the language. He's been there before. He understands what it's like. And he has the knowledge. So, and it's somebody that I can go toe to toe with. Like if he thinks something is a bad idea, I will seriously question whether or not it is a bad idea or a good idea. Like if I come to him with an idea and he's like, that's a bad idea, I'm like, oh, that's kind of like, I trust his opinion. And I think that's really important too.
100%. And this stems to, it's very cliche. I'm sure all the listeners have seen it once, probably way more times on Instagram. You are who you surround yourself with. And I think in terms of business, when you create something, we talked about it earlier before we started, trust, and you believe trust and loyalty. So those two things, that must have been the bedrock with Lewis.
Yeah, definitely it was. And again, like a lot of this stuff that I can now vocalize is only because I've started to hear other people talking about it. Before, everything was just done off of instinct for me.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's another big benefit that I've seen from having Lewis much more involved in my life, is like I force myself to learn stuff that I didn't even know about that maybe I'm already doing, but now I can put words to it and understand it better and communicate it. But yeah, definitely like trust and loyalty, bedrock of that relationship, bedrock of any good relationship, and bedrock of who you should want to work with no matter what. You can hire for a whole slew of things. Not that Lewis is an employee, obviously, but I'm saying with employees, you can hire for a whole slew of things, and people are very qualified for a whole number of jobs. But if you can't trust the person to work hard, you can't trust that they won't fuck you over, and you can't trust that they want to be there because you've created an environment that they want to be in and they enjoy that and it's a good fit for them, well, then all of the other stuff is just, it doesn't matter because you can hire for the other stuff. That's the one thing you can't teach. I can't teach somebody to have intrinsic motivation. Right? It's like one of the only things you can't teach.
That really hits on something that a manager at JLL told me. He hires on ICA. It's intelligence, character, and attitude. And he believes with character and attitude, it's something you can't teach. And I think that somewhat stems into what you were talking about loyalty and things like that. But this conversation's really early stage. One theme that I'm seeing, you seem like you've done most of your learning from throwing yourself into things and actually trying it. You've done all the courses, you've done all the Google courses, but it sounds like you've thrown yourself into so many scenarios where you are not 100% sure that you've done this exact thing before, but it's never going to be the best time. And it sounds like you've learned so much from those experiences. So one thing that I believe is, I oftentimes go back to this thing called the learning retention pyramid, and it's practice by doing, and teaching others is some of the highest ways to learn things. And when I hear your stories, it sounds like there were so many scenarios where you learned on the go and you adapted and you changed. And as you're talking about how you were in scenarios and over time you've learned how to articulate them, how to understand certain things. And I think a lot of people in terms of entrepreneurship, that's what entrepreneurship's about, is throwing yourself into things and learning as you go and making sure that you have those people around you. But ultimately, like, you've definitely gotten some absurd results with that. Do you think that's the key in terms of starting as an early on entrepreneur? Because at the end of the day, I look on 10, 15 years ago, my dad always told me how, you have to build yourself up over years, but you found a way to fast track that where you're super young and you've created this agency and you've created these indicators that I look at. And honestly, man, it's incredible. Like, not a lot of people can sit there and say that they've done this. And one theme that I'm getting from you is because you throw yourself into those scenarios, even that you do maybe know or have an idea, it sounds like you've pivoted, you've dipped into Web3, you've dipped into these different avenues, and now you seem to be hyper-focusing. I know we talked before that your agency has that advantage of that focus factor. So how long did that take? Was that a thing where you tried a lot of things and then you said, I want to do the finance marketing? Or was it something where you just tried it and you're just like, finance marketing, yeah? Or was it from experience of trying all these different things?
No, it was from experience of trying all these different things. And I was very interested in it. But yeah, I think the other thing that you had asked me too was about whether or not what you need for success as like a young agency owner, or if you're in life, is being able to hurl yourself and see what happens. And I can say that is always how I've operated. I think that that's just something that I do. It's led to issues in my life for sure. Just hurling myself at shit and just saying, let's try it. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's do this. But that accompanied with speed will kill every time, because you will fail very quickly. You'll learn very quickly. You have to analyze what happened very quickly. And then great, next thing. And when you do that, you're constantly just moving up, because and you're getting a better road, and you're constantly moving forward, because all of these failures, if you're quick about it and you learn from it quickly, great, next thing now with this knowledge that I have from this other thing. And I think that that's really what did it. Like, I hurled myself, I guess, like I hadn't really thought about this, but I hurled myself into those first ads, right? It went well for quite a while. I realized that, there's got to be a way for me to be able to make more, but also to be able to run a business that I was really proud of, and that was interesting, right? And where I was providing big value instead of value at a small scale for some individuals. And from there, you learn, you move to the next thing. You just have to move with speed. I decided that I wanted to do big level public company 7-figure or 6-figure campaigns where it's like for 2 months or 3 months. And within, I decided that it was going to happen. People were telling me I was insane. It's not going to happen. There's no way. My business partner at the time was like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. And I pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And a month and a half later, I landed one.
Crazy.
So, you speed and continuing to hurl yourself at shit and just hope you're right. And a lot of times you will be, because the man who thinks you can and the man who thinks you can't are both right? Yeah. So if you believe that you can do it, well, your odds are a lot higher than the guy that thinks that he can't, that it is going to happen, because then you'll be looking for all the opportunities where you can make it happen, right?
100%. And this is why you fit this podcast dead on. And living fast. That's the name of the podcast, Living with Speed. Yeah. And you're somebody who's definitely somebody who lives life pretty fast from what I've on this early conversation. But I also think that speed in business and in life is super important. And it makes sense that even though that you had all these things that you did move towards this, it led you to having this clarity on this is where I want to go, because you've tried all these different avenues and now you know what works, and you've honed in. So I know that with Savvy, something that you guys, an advantage that you guys have is we talked a little bit over messages with your methodologies, like how you guys sell to your clients. Let's start peeling back the onion there.
With like the sales side of the business?
Yeah.
Yeah, like we don't sell. I don't think that any good offer should have to be sold. I think that you should have leads coming in that are qualified enough, and that your offer is a good enough fit for those people that are qualified, that it's like it's an obvious fit, right? When you're hungry and you go to the grocery store, it's not a question of am I going to eat? It's just a question of what am I going to eat, right? And so if you have that product market fit It shouldn't be a sales process. It should be a qualification process. Are you going to succeed given the things that we're using? If yes, great, let's continue. And just holding that frame in the conversation, the qualifying, all of that kind of stuff. And that's true on almost in every aspect of life. You should be controlling that frame, right? Like you should be making your attention desired and your I don't know, your attention desired, but scarce. I would say, like making yourself scarce to people and making the opportunities scarce to people in business. And genuinely because you want to do a good job. You can only take on so many clients, all this kind of stuff, which is true, right? But at the same time, you got to do a little bit of push for them to pull, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's really what we focus on is there's this not a sales process, so to speak. I'm not handling objections. If there's an objection, the person doesn't feel comfortable enough with you, or they don't understand the product well enough, or they shouldn't be on the call with you in the first place because it's not a good fit for them. So there is no like, oh, I'm handling an objection from them. It's like, okay, no problem. You know, if that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do. Go ahead. This isn't the right fit kind of thing. So it's just different. It's different. Or I know that I need to make you feel more comfortable. Therefore, I'm going to give you information. I'm going to build that relationship with you, right? And just like we don't qualify ourselves to people. I don't believe in having to qualify yourself. You know, like you should be setting up your process, have your case studies, have your track record, have all this stuff in place. You don't have to talk about it with them. Look, this is what I've done. I'm going to do something similar for you. And just kind of working them through that conversation and making sure that they feel comfortable and just asking questions. Like all my guys talk 20% or less whenever they're in sales calls because we're not selling, we're talking and asking questions.
I love that. I think that a lot of people, they look at sales and they think of that stingy salesman that makes them uncomfortable almost. Right. Buy this. Right. It sounds like you're almost attaching value to your guys' attention.
Correct.
But seeing it, you have your guys' website, you have the case studies, you have the proof right there. You don't need to spend 2.5 hours on this call explaining because at the end of the day, your attention's valuable. And I think that goes back to the higher level thing we were talking about is moving with speed. It probably forces you guys to get a lot more calls in with so many more clients because you guys go in with that mentality. And why I love it is because when we started this podcast, I said, my angle is making people feel comfortable and come on. And I think that the salesperson that goes in there and tries to, I need to sell them this. The question you should be asking is, no, do I need to sell? Are they a right fit for this?
Yeah.
Like, are they going to benefit from our service? Do they believe that they're the right fit for us? And almost switching that. And I think that's such a better approach, and it creates a better frame for both parties.
Totally. And it's a better footing to start your work relationship off with somebody, right? Like it's just the whole way through is better, and they trust you more because you're actually talking to them. You've asked them a bunch of questions. They've talked to you about everything inside of their business. You've already discussed what previous pain points they have, what's going well in the business, all this kind of stuff. You've built a relationship. It's a legitimate relationship that you're building rather than, I'm handling an objection or hard selling. I always say it's not hard selling. We do assumed closing. If I'm going to do anything, if I'm going to like put a name to a sales method, it's like you just assume that they're going to close. It's like when you walk into Starbucks, they used to always say this at the source. If when you walk into Starbucks, they don't ask you like, are you here for coffee? They say, what can I get started for you today? Because it's assumed that you're in there for coffee. And so it's the same thing in our sales processes. Like it's assumed that you're here to talk to us. We've already qualified that you have the amount of money necessary to work with us. We like your business. Otherwise, you wouldn't be at the second call stage, right? Or you wouldn't even get to the first call stage because our setter calls every single appointment at the beginning of the day and either DQs them or ensures that they're going to be there. So like I already know that you're the right fit. You already know the price. You've already seen what we can do. Like everything's already been laid out. So let's just talk about this and see if it's a good fit and then go from there. And that's, I think, probably the best way to sell, at least from what we've seen.
Wow. That angle when it comes to selling is something that I think a lot of people, especially people that want to get into sales, need to go into and really adopt. Because when I think of the selling aspect, I had a scenario. I'm going to tell a personal story here. I was in an Uber, and I don't know if you're familiar with the World Financial Group. It's like a MLM, and I was being pitched it, and I could tell the whole time he was trying to sell me, like make me, this is
like
you
life
should do
insurance?
this. It was a system where you would sign up and you would get a code, and then they would take a percentage and they would provide you with services. But it was pretty much just hard selling me on it, where I didn't think, like, I made it well known to them that I did not need it and I didn't want to do it. But then it left a bad taste in my stomach. When I left that Uber, I remember the feeling that I felt. That person does not have my best interest in mind. He's trying to make a sale. He's trying to do what's best for him. He knows that it's not good for me, because anyone that can pick up on normal social cues is going to be able to tell. And I think that going in with that angle, like you said, it's building actually a relationship and building that thing. And this all adds up is why you've been able to get these type of results, because it all comes down to people and the relationship and bringing the right people on. And I think that you going in with that mentality and going in with that sales mindset, not assuming the close, you're almost manifesting, like you have that belief in yourself. You're manifesting yourself that this sale's already done.
Yeah.
And you're going to move differently. So I think that that's so interesting. And I think that when it comes down to you building this business, was that something that you always believed in from working at the source? Did you use these techniques and then you brought it to Savvy? Or did you, from experience, maybe you had an experience similar to me where someone was overly pushing a sales call and you're like, that's not how we're going to do it, and you really made that a priority?
No, I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, my sales experience is varied. Like, I started selling door to door when I was really young. It was charity door to door. So I wasn't selling anything. And then I did door to door for windows, like window cleaning and painting, like college pro painters. And I did that for many years. And then I worked at the Source, which was like selling cell phone. Like, people think it's an electronics store. Really, it's just a cell phone sales place. Like, that's where everybody's making money. And so you got paid commission on those sales. So that was another sales job. And so just through those experiences, you gain a lot of information. And so there was not one thing that I can point at that has created the sales ethos that we use today, or that I preach that clients use when they're, dealing with investors or things like that. Right. Like, that sales ethos is built over years and years and years of experience in different areas with different individuals, business owners. Door to door is the hardest type of sales. My strongest salesman at my organization right now, he came from door to door. He used to do solar door to door. And it's because you can't bullshit. You can't hard close. Someone's going to close the door in your face. Like, when you're doing door to door sales, you will get the door closed in your face for sure. So you are just trying desperately to keep that door open with them. And the best way to do that is to do things like ask questions about them, get more involved with them, figure out, what they like to do, build the relationship with them so that they like you, so that they want to have a conversation with you, because they've got a bunch of other things going on inside their house, And so I think maybe that's something I could attribute it to, but, and then I sold for Savvy Social for the first year and a half. I was our salesman. It was a small agency, so like I was taking calls. So I learned a lot there with dealing with business owners as well as individuals. So it's a compound of all of these different events, right? Yeah. So what you're saying earlier kind of reminded me of back in school. I was in a class with this girl, and she had just gotten a contract with PwC, which was like a consulting firm. It's like one of the major consulting firms. And she was just so excited and like rubbing it in people's faces that she got this job.
I'm picturing it. I know exactly.
The person, like super diligent in school.
100%.
Like,
We got the big four.
Yeah, she was like flexing and
LinkedIn posts.
Totally. And it was like, you just signed up to work for 4 years for one company and make fucking like 80 grand a year, and you're all fired up. But like for a lot of those people, that's the reality, and that's cool. Like, we need people like that.
Yeah.
And they get excited because PwC has built that status delta, and PwC is a big firm and they work on big clients, and that's great and it's understandable. And I hope one day I can have a firm that's that big, and people get that excited to work for it. But like, that is what that average kind of person sitting next to you is excited about. And if you're not, it's like what you're saying, when guys are in school and they're like, yeah, I have the entrepreneurial spirit. It's like, okay, great. Go do it. Go and do it. Go and make money. Go and figure out how to make money. Go and not make money for a long time. And then suddenly you start making a little bit of money, and then make a little bit of money for a while. And then it'll grow and it'll grow and it'll grow and it'll grow. And suddenly it'll become something that is bigger than anything that you could have otherwise used your time for. But if you're not doing it at the same time as you're getting your degree, there are guys that are doing that.
Yeah.
Right? There are guys that are not going to school. They're spending that time in their parents' basement to learn all those hard lessons and not make any money. Then they're making a bunch of money and they're getting out there. But if you can successfully do both, then you're in a really good spot, right? And so the problem is, a lot of guys, and same thing in my classes, there'd be guys that had entrepreneurial spirit and they never did anything, and they would always talk about how they want to do something. They want to do this business. They want to do that business. They want to do it. Do something. Just do it. And fail and win, and then fail a little more and then win some more. And eventually you'll be able to figure it out. But just going through school, finishing school, getting a contract with a company, or going to a big company for a while, I'm only going to work there for 4 years, but then I'm going to start doing entrepreneurial stuff. No, you won't. You'll end up working there until you die, or at firms similar until you die. And that'll be the life that you've chosen. And that's why it's so important to fling yourself at shit. Yeah. Right? Is so that you don't get stuck in that monotony that a lot of people get stuck in over a long period of time.
That is so many people's reality.
Totally.
And it's so hard to, because your environment, everyone's talking about. I remember when I arrived at Sauder and everyone wanted to work for KPMG. They kept coming to the school. And then it almost got into my head, maybe I want to work there. I didn't have a reason. When I started peeling back the onion, I realized I don't want to work there. Not because I think it's a bad firm. Not because I just believed I wanted to do what I wanted to do. In KPMG, although people get excited and it means the world to them, I could see that if I got that, I knew that I did it based on the influence of others and not because it's something that I had a fire inside of me to do.
Yeah.
And it's hard because the environment around you, there's so many of those people, like you talked about, of freaking out over PwC. And I think energy is contagious. When someone's getting so excited, you're like, wow, it might be the best firm in the world.
Totally.
But you said just go for it. Just do it. Just fling yourself at things. And I want to give a shout out on this podcast, and you know him personally too, Noah Kent. I remember I flinged myself at something. I lost my girlfriend. I was walking downtown and I was not having the best day. And I walked into Equinox. I love the gym. I've always loved fitness. And I love Body Energy Club. I used to go all the time to the UBC location. I'm probably the number one customer. I'm not saying that as a flex. They just tell me that all the time. But I go there 2-3 times a day sometimes before I start doing the 1 meal a day. I love Body Energy Club to death. They have a Body Energy in Equinox. They have this beautiful gym. This is a little personal, but I want to share. I had $400 in my bank account, and they bring me up. They show me Equinox, show me around the gym. And, I was in school, but I didn't really get excited about school or the outcome school was going to get me at that point. I was in that right where I want to do big things, but I don't think I'm in a position, I'm in the right environment. And I remember walking around that gym with, his name was Aiden. He works at Equinox still. He's one of the guys that does the sales thing. And he pulls me into the office and he says, okay. I said, I just wanted to go for a solo workout. He said, you got to sign up for a month, man. I said, dude, how much is it? And he says, well, it's an initiation fee. You got to pay like $500 and then it's like $250, $300 a month. And I look at my bank balance and I said, there's no way. Like in my mind, I said, there's no way. And then he goes, well, you know what? We'll waive the initiation fee for you. I said, yeah, man, just not in a position. But then he said, okay, I'm going to give you like 5 minutes to think about it. I walked out of there. I went on the couch right outside the office and I'm sitting there on the couch and I just said, fuck it. I remember this, just fuck it. Because I knew that I made a promise to myself. If I sign up to that gym, it will be worth it. Like I will make $250, whether it be money or in value. I will meet somebody. I will be in a positive environment, positive mind, and I will make a comeback. And I took that risk. Most people on paper, including my parents, I didn't tell my dad because he'd be like, you're an idiot. I just said, I'm going to do this. And I was so certain on it. I said, fuck it. I signed the contract, signed up for a year. And then I met Noah Kent. It was the change room. It was final season, and I had my final exam for finance, Comp 298. Shout out to Darren DeGraff. He told me that he thinks I should drop the course because I failed the midterm, and he didn't have confidence I'd fail the course. I passed the course. I said, fuck that. I'm taking the final. I'm going to pass the course. I had the final 2 days later, and I thought I lost my computer at Equinox, and I'm tripping out. I'm on caffeine, a bunch of stimulants. I'm just going around, where's my computer? And my parents often told me, Weston, you're clumsy, it's bad. But I'll never think that's bad anymore. Because if I wasn't clumsy in that scenario, if I wasn't forgetful, I wouldn't have met Noah. Because I'm freaking out, I forgot or I wouldn't have met Noah in the way that I did. It was the way that I did that made the change. So he walks in and he's this young guy at Equinox. At the time, Equinox was early on. Everyone that went there was generally lawyers, doctors, etc., older people. You didn't really catch a lot of young people there. And there was that intrigue there. He said, someone stole your laptop? What the fuck, man? And I said, yeah, man, like I have an exam. I'm kind of freaking out. And he says, dude, someone stole your laptop. Like, that's fucked. What, did you go to school? And I said, yeah, I'm a student. Oh, no way. What year? Oh, second year. Oh, no way. Where do you go? UBC. Oh, no way. What program? Solder. Oh, no way. I was in your year. In my year. I said, in my year. And he says, yeah, I dropped out. I said, dropped out? Well, what do you do? He says, I run a social media marketing agency and I do crypto. I said, that's really cool. Sweet. That's awesome. Turns out we won the same award. He DM'd me on Instagram 2 days later and I had it in my bio. He DM'd me. He said, oh, we won the same award. That's awesome, man. Like, would love to connect. We met up. And then as I go back to that thing that I said earlier about how energy is contagious, he just kept talking about like crypto. It's this big thing. And I could sense he was passionate about something. Like he had that drive for it. And he kept talking about it. I said, yeah, you know what? This sounds fucking interesting. I didn't see it as a money play. It was just an interest. And I said, dude, like, let's meet up. Tell me about it. If I like it, yeah. Threw me in a Discord with Connor Gale Jaden, the founder of Keys. And I ended up working at Keys and it changed my life. Yeah. It changed my life. And it showed me the most important thing I'll tell people that it did for me was showing that it's possible at this age. Meeting you and having this podcast right now, you being 24 years old and building this business, scaling this business, creating this infrastructure, doing all these things, having Jeff here, doing this podcast. The only reason why I'm able to do it is because I've met people like you that are young, that are around my age, that are doing these things. And I can't put it into words what it does to your brain showing that it's possible at that time. Because I didn't think this stuff was possible until you were 30, 40 years old. I always wanted to do big things, but I didn't have those people around me that had those entrepreneurial spirit, had those things we were talking about and saw school in that kind of way that you were talking about, or they would watch TV with the girlfriend, right?
Yeah,
They didn't
totally
have that. and it changed my life, man. And I just wanted to share that, but a little off topic, but
it's a good story, man. And it proves the point that your network is your net worth is your network, and vice versa, right? Like, it's so important who you surround yourself with, who you spend time with, who you're talking to about things. And you don't need to be talking about business or money or let's grind or let's link and build with your buddies. But they have similar issues. You know, Noah and I, when we talk, it's often productive. I often gain a business insight from him that I might not have thought about because he runs an agency and I run an agency. And due to that fact, there's often similar issues that we might be facing that we can help one another with, right? Or it's the fact that when you say to that guy, like, hey, man, I can't come over. I need to work. I got pulled into a meeting. He doesn't care. Like, it's water off a duck's back, and same for me with them. It's, you know, your priorities, when your priorities are aligned with those people, those are going to be really good relationships. When they want the same things that you want in life, their habits are going to be similar to what you want your habits to be, right? And because they're in a similar nature of day-to-day life, like I would say work, but it's not work. Like it's your life, because from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, I'm dealing with my business. So for me, that's my life, and their life is very similarly aligned, and their activities are similarly aligned. And so, you know, 100%, you want to get around people, and the sooner you can get around people. I think that's one place where I screwed up, was I didn't sooner change who I surrounded myself with and have harsher restrictions on who I gave access to me. And nowadays I'm very, very conscious about it. I do not just hang out with people. When people hit me up and I can't see it being a symbiotic relationship, I'm generally not interested in it. And I'm pretty tight on that. And it's one, because my time is very finite nowadays, and I want to make sure that I'm using it well and in a way that I believe will further my goals, but also because you want to surround yourself with people that are going to push you to be able to reach those goals. So yeah, I definitely agree that it couldn't be more important who you surround yourself with.
100%. And going back to the topic of this podcast, living fast, and you know, we talked about moving with speed. We talked about building a business from the ground up. You telling a lot of personal stories about your experience, your advantage, what you've done, how you've built it, mistakes you've made. And honestly, I think a lot of people are going to look at this and, yeah, you've had all these successes, but to get these successes, you've had a lot of failures. Yeah. And that's okay. Like, we didn't even go into with you having these multiple businesses that you had that maybe didn't work out in the beginning, like early on. And maybe you can look at that two ways. Okay, that's bad, but it brought you here and you're winning right now. Totally. So I know people say failures are a part of life. Failures are something that you should look at and lean into, and they're fine. They happen. Failures are only good, in my opinion, if you win. If at the end of the day you win. Failures are good if you failed, then you're here. If you fail and you can never come back from it, or, you know, my girlfriend left me, then I failed at a solder and I'm back home. Well, failure was good. No, it probably wasn't. Yeah,
well, your response to failure was just what was wrong, right? Like, nowadays I look forward to chaos, which is probably fucked, but I look forward to some sort of chaos occurring, because generally speaking, when shit goes left and you are forced with your back up against the wall and you feel like shit, you have two options. You can either stop what you're doing, or you can keep going and try and figure it out. Always have two options. When your girlfriend dumped you, you had those two options. When you weren't doing well at school, you had those two options, right? And so the only thing is, you have to choose that option that is keep going, keep working towards my goals, and don't let things phase you. You can't let those things phase you because they're going to happen. You need to learn from them very quickly. You need to analyze what happened, where you fucked up. You need to take responsibility, and then you need to learn from it and move on.
100%. It's just your response.
Totally.
That mentality.
Totally.
And almost you're going to do it regardless what happens. And it goes back to what you were saying earlier about building that pedigree, that discipline, the toughness, mental toughness, being able to deal with those failures and be like, no matter what happens, I can deal with it, or I'm going to pivot in the right way. I'm going to make sure that regardless what happens, regardless failures, I'm going to keep going. And it's having that lens. And I really believe if you have that lens and you go into scenarios where regardless what happens, failure is going to happen. And maybe I don't want it to happen, but it may come. And understanding that it may come and it may happen, and almost leaning into that. And I love what you said, chaos, because I'm not going to share all of it because I never want to share my full daily mantra, but I actually do a daily mantra every day to myself. And I did this framework with it, and I wrote it out, and I change it every year. I review it, I change it a little bit, and I read it to myself pretty much every day. I actually read it before you came over, right before I did this podcast. And it starts off, I'm an agent of chaos. I believe the world's chaos, and I believe trying to not accept that and not see the world that it's not chaos, you're going to get in a lot of scenarios where you're going to feel super uncomfortable, and you're going to say, this is not what the world's going to be, but it is. Like, that's totally what I believe.
Totally. And if you're not prepared for it, then that's when shit is going to go left for you. So yeah, you got to harden, as Sandy earlier, right? Like, you got to harden yourself to any negative things that could happen. They're going to happen at some point, but you just need to act at all times like things are going to happen in the best way possible for you, no matter what. And yeah, I mean, like, personally, I always just said, like my thing is, I just don't believe that God would give you a challenge that you can't handle. And so for me, that's what like helps me get through stuff like that. Is just, I wouldn't be getting faced with this issue if I couldn't handle it. I have two ways to handle it. I could stop and restart and be pissed and let it defeat me, or you can keep moving and everything will be fine in a week or a month or 2 months or 3 months or a year, or maybe it takes 3 years. And I think when we get older, I'm sure I will have a failure at some point in my life that takes a year or two to recover from. But you'll recover from it, and you will have learned a hell of a lesson in that period of time.
100%. 100%. Well, I think that this brings us to a very end of the podcast. So I think we gave a lot of value, but there's one more question.
Yeah.
So we talked about a lot of different topics. We've given a ton of value. Actually, I want to tell everyone the mic shut out for a bit, so some of this podcast may not make it to the final edit, but we'll try our best to get it out to you guys, because the whole podcast, listen to it all, it was absolute gold. Alex killed it. And I also want to mention that, give a shout out to the Uber driver yesterday. I actually got locked out of my apartment, wasn't able to get in. The Uber driver was kind enough to drop me off with my friend downtown, stayed at his place, got my mom to bring the keys to me. She's the reason the podcast happened. Shout out to the Uber driver. Shout out to my mom for helping this. I will make this podcast happen every episode, any means necessary. If I'm in control, it will happen. This podcast was important. Want to give a shout out to those two people. Also want to give a shout out to Locked In Supplements, 8born Fitness, Get Liquid, Mercy Luxury. I love the boys. Want to give a shout out to Savvy Social as well. Want to give a shout out to Alex for coming on this podcast. Want to give a shout out to Jeff the Man. This is probably going to be the final episode. He's filming for a while, so want to give a shout out to him too. He's an absolute killer. The guy is running his own agency called Daybreak, so definitely check him out. He will give you killer videos. The guy is a killer creative, so want to give him a little bit of a shout out before I ask the final question of this episode. So, Living Fast, that's the name of the episode. And I think that everyone lives life in their own way. But when I look at you, you're a character. You're somebody that I love to surround myself with. Every time I talk to you, it's a positive interaction. So I want to ask is, Alex, how do you live life fast?
I live life fast every day. Speed is my motto. I think that the faster you can move through life, the faster you can fail, the faster you can win. the better off you're going to be. And speed kills. Always has, always will. And that's true in any part of your life. Do not put off till tomorrow what can be done today.
Awesome. Well, that's it for Living Fast. I want to give a final goodbye to everyone and thank Alex one last time. But he'll definitely be on once again, and we have some big plans. So we're going to be talking about a lot of that in the future.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, brother.
Let's do it.
I appreciate it.
Dope.